on Love and Money Secrets TV today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. And thank you so much for inviting me and for having me here today to share with everybody and see, what can be of service from whatever that I can share. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, as you were saying, it's amazing what we as human can really go through and not just survive, but create a whole different life with a whole different reality for us and for the people around us.
Yes, if anyone has completely remade their self, basically remolded and reshaped and redefined their personality, their environment, everything, soup to nuts. I got to say, you got to win the Nobel Peace Prize for that because you have an amazing story. So, before we dive in deep into the nitty gritty of exactly what happened to you, because you did have one life changing event, which most people would have not survived. Most people, by all means, would have not made
Yeah.
it through. But for starters, you are on the East Coast right now.
Yeah, we just moved back to the East Coast. I'm in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. We were in Costa Rica. Um, yeah, we were supposed to be having a bunch of travels this year, but we came back from the Amazon where we were learning from all the shamans in the Amazons. And then after that, we went back to Costa Rica and the whole thing happened in the planet. And then we stayed in Costa Rica for a while, and like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we came back to Cape Cod in the East Coast, and that's where we are now.
Okay. So before we dive into more of the specifics too, why don't you tell our viewers where were you born? Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about, what it was like growing up, where you went to school, what did you study
Yeah.
when you went to college?
Yeah, in my path, like I was born in the north of Costa Rica, so I'm a Costa Rican. I always tell everybody that, I was born in a place where there is a beautiful big volcano with a perfect shape, a volcano shape. And I always said that I'm a daughter of the volcano. I have lava instead of blood in my veins.
Oh my I love
Because
that.
yeah, so I was born in the north of the of the country, and it was a beautiful place. I grew up in a very humble house. I have four brothers, so we're five siblings. I'm the oldest one and the only woman, so I have to deal with four brothers. So I kind of get the masculine, I have to deal with men my whole life. And so
Wow,
yeah,
four
I grew up
boys.
in there. And then I left that place when I was like 13 years old. I did the first year of high school in there, and then I moved to a city for the first time, which was like the capital of the north. And then I stayed there for a while. I had a very funny story. I left my house when I was 14 years old, never went back. And yeah, at 14 I just decided, that this life that I'm living right now, this is not the life that I want to live. So I decided to just, leave my parents, leave my house, leave everything. 14 years old, I had 20 cents of a dollar in my pocket, and I left with that, never went back and never looked back. And I just decided at 14 to take life in my own hands. Yeah, and that was part of it.
Okay, so we got to hit the pause button here because that is pretty bold for a 14-year-old girl to decide to just pick up and leave their home and go to another town. You're obviously very young, not very well educated, obviously very bright, but still you're only 14 years old. So what are the thoughts that were going through your head, and what were the emotions that you were feeling that led up to the point where you said, that's it, I'm out of here. I'm going to whatever place you went to.
Yeah, I think that my soul chose a pretty challenging experience with parents. I needed to grow a lot, and I guess to understand a lot. And I chose parents that were not, in their highest in many things at that time, and they didn't have all the education or all the wisdom and knowledge about how to be parents or how to do their best. And of course, I understand now that they were doing their best, but they were really, really abusive and violent. And, by the time I was 14 years old, I have already tried to kill myself 3 times because Like if that was life, I just didn't want it, you know. And then at 14, I had a really, really bad beating by my dad, and I broke my nose. Like my nose is still broken. You can still see it a little bit. I broke my nose, and I had all these, you know, blue things all over my body because it like hit me so bad. And you know, like my dad was very violent at that point, so he would like get the air out of my stomach, and then when I was like with no air, he will then like beat me up. And yeah, and I had a lot of blood running and everything. And that night I went home and I went to sleep, and when I went to sleep, I just had this dream that said that I couldn't be there anymore, and it was like me falling into a cliff, and there was these hands like lifting me up and saying like, you have to leave this place, but I will always carry you, like I'll always be with you, and you have nothing to fear. And I had like 20 cents in my pocket. And yeah, the other day I left. It was actually a priest from the local church that helped me to escape my parents' house. The priest helped me to get out of the house, and a bunch of people got involved into trying to hide me and getting me out of my house. And I got out of my house, and I went to live with a professor that had been my professor in my first year of high school. And she thought that I was very smart and very intelligent, and that if I ever needed help, she will help me. And so when the time was right, I called her, and then, you know, the child services called her, and then they had my custody and my guardianship for, you know, for a bunch of time. Yeah.
So, okay, so another pause button here. So there is obviously the divine's hand, which has been on your life, but you were also spiritually sensitive enough and intuitive enough and trusting in not only your intuition, but, you know, intuition comes to us in many different forms. And so in this particular case, it sounds like the divine, you know, God came to you in a dream, and it was such a profound experience that you didn't doubt it or second question it, coupled with other things that were, you know, the circumstances under you were which you accepted it, embraced it, and took it as a sign that this is the direction that you needed to go. You didn't overanalyze it. You trusted that instinct and moved forward, paying attention to your intuition. And it's interesting because it sounds like before that moment that you made a choice to leave, which was escalated by your father beating you up, it sounds like because of the previous abusive behaviors that towards you and beatings, it sounds like you were thinking about, you know, maybe I just need to get out of here. Maybe I just need to get out of here. And it sounds like that was one beating too many, where you're like, that's it. This is no, this is not acceptable. I'm not going to accept somebody inflicting this level of pain,
Yeah.
anybody inflicting this level of abuse. And
Yeah, and it's funny because in the little town that I grew up is very, you know, we're talking, this was 25, 26 years ago almost, and it was a small little town where pretty much nothing happens, and the future of the girls there is like, if you're pretty enough, you're lucky. And I always heard all these women talking about, you're really lucky if you get a husband that doesn't beat you up and that is not an alcoholic. Like those were the only two things that a woman could aspire to in that place. You know, it was like everything else, if the guy, you know, is whatever it is, if he cheats on you or he's not loving or not caring or not present, just be grateful that you got one that is not an alcoholic and it doesn't beat you up. And I, inside of me, even with my short mind at that age, I'm like, I'm not signing up for this. I just gotta get out of this place, you know, and this is not going to be my story. And I don't know. I just always, I think that it's just as you're saying, like I heard that voice and I trusted it. And even today, something that I teach all my clients and that I say is that when it comes to your life and to really connecting to divinity, and there is like 3 steps. And the first one is listen, trust, and act on what you have been given. So it's listen to what spirit is telling you, trust that you're receiving, because it's coming to your energy field for a reason. And then, you know, because intuition, people say, well, but intuition is not scientific, but it's actually the opposite. It's the most scientific. So many like speed lights, mathematics, and operations and things that is happening in your whole body at the gut level, at the spirit level, that is making and seeing everything, that is so fast and so complex, that is telling us the specific route for us to follow. And it's happening at a light speed inside of us, but it's all happening, so complicated operations and things, all going into giving you that feeling into this is the direction. And then, of course, act according to what you just have received.
Yeah, and I love how you language it. You said, listen, trust, and act. And it's so poignant that you're talking. I just authored and wrote a book on intuition called The Intuition Manifesto. And we talk about the different ways that intuition shows up in people's lives and how you can use that to be the key to your success. When you tap into the divine, you're tuned in, tapped in, and turned on to that perfect source of intelligence. It's I am, it's God. You know, I don't like people to get hung up with labels.
Oops, I think it's breaking up a
But
little
it is
bit.
tap into, and it will never steer you wrong. Once you start to recognize the difference between your thoughts, your brain, your ego, the emotions that are lodged into your body, separate from that pure, soft, still voice that manifests in different forms and different ways. It always communicates to you the way that you understand best. And so this is absolutely fascinating that you were able to embrace that so wholeheartedly. So what happened then? You told your professor, you made the great escape, you took off. How far away was your hometown from where your professor lived to where you moved?
uh, uh 2 hours driving.
2 hours away.
No,
Oh,
like
so,
2.5, two and a
so it's
half hours driving.
so it's a significant distance. It's not like there anyone from your family is going to unexpectedly pop up because it's going to take
No,
a
it was
day,
a
basically.
whole different town, a whole different part of the country. Yeah, no, it was different, far away.
So wow, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out here because you talked about how that intelligence and how that intuition, how it's so precise. Einstein repeatedly said that intuition and imagination are far greater than any analytical thinking that you could do with your critical brain and your mind. And he,
Yeah, because the critical mind just gives you certain options according to whatever is the perception and the lens of reality that you have taken in your life. But imagination and intuition have no
you,
those filters, so they are infinite possibilities.
I think you have you sent as part of your intro, it says, "I'll show you how to delete slavery codes, free your mind from the voices inside, and access the vibration of abundance, love, purpose, and joy." And that's exactly what God is, the great I am, the creator, the infinite source intelligence. And it always, it doesn't, it's like you can't screw it up. If you just pay attention and follow and trust that guidance, even things that seem wrong, later it'll be revealed how it was so right for
Yeah.
you. It may have not been right for anybody else, but for you, it was the perfect thing, place, time, person, circumstance. So what happened
Well,
next?
yeah, so what happened next is like I stayed there at my professor's house. Then my parents like put a lawsuit to get me out of there, and it took them like a year. So a year later, I have to leave my professor's house and go back to some family members, people that they were not nice. So from that point, I started moving around a lot. Like I ran away from the house where the child agency sent me, and I ran away from there. And then I went to a bunch of different places. By the time I was in what is it called, the last year of high school, is it junior, no, senior, I don't know, well, the last year of high school, The last year, by the time that I was in the last year of high school, I have lived probably like in 25 or 30 different houses. And all I had was like a tiny little bag where I will carry my tiny little belongings and things. And I would stay 1 week in one house, 2 weeks in another parent house. And yeah, everybody was just like, I always tell that I am the result of human kindness, because there is so many people that helped me, that supported me, that gave me so much. I had so many angels in my life that were really giving me everything. They were feeding me, buying me clothes, buying me shoes. Like, even in the school, there was something very funny, because one time after I have run away from different from these places that the government tried to kept trying to send me, and I kept running away from those places. And I'm like, I think that since pretty early age, I'm like, no, the government is not going to direct my life and tell me what to do. Like, I'm going to direct my life. So I kept running away from these places the government was sending me to. So I went to this place, and I wanted to go to a school that was a private school run by some nuns, the San Francisco nuns, like this
In Costa
saying that,
Rica.
yeah, in Costa Rica. But I had no money to sign up for this school. So I was crying. I remember I was crying, walking through the park of the city where I was living. And then I'm walking there, and I find this this guy that was like a priest in a church that I have been, and he recognized me, and I'm crying there. And he's like, why are you crying? Because he knew me from the other time where I used to live. And I'm like, well, because all that I want is I just want to be educated. It's not that I want anything bad, but I want to go to this school and I don't have money to sign up. And I was just like crying so much. And then he said, well, go to this office. And I go to that office, and there's a woman there, and she gives me this envelope with the money to register in the school and 3 months of the school fee. And then she gave me that money. And I run to that school, and I sign up, and I sign up in this private school with all the kind of like the rich kids, of that little town in Costa Rica. And I go there, and I start getting like a really good education and everything. And I'm like, I always seen the hand of the divine protecting me, giving to me, handling things to me. And it was so blessed. So I went there, and when it was time to go to college, the psychologist of the place gave me, there was a $3 fee that you have to pay to sign up for the college, what's it called, SAT test. And then I got that, and I got a scholarship because of my grades and the SAT grades that I got. So I made it to college, and I started, I went to college in there. And when I went there, I got really, really big into politics, into the university. And I ran for, I created and founded the student associations for public accounting and business association. And I started going into politics. And then I started, I became part of the government of the whole university, which was 30,000 people. And then I started representing Costa Rica outside of different countries and places. And yeah, it was a very fun journey over there. And then I got married. I came here to the United States. I met the father of my kids here in Cape Cod, actually. And yeah, and then I got married, and then I got divorced. I moved back to Costa Rica, and I left and I just started again with my 2 little girls. And then I started to get a job again, and I have never worked in a long time. So I have to start from zero, making like $3 a day, not an hour, but like a day. And I was there like for 2 months, and then I applied to another job, and then I was there. I finished all my degrees in college, and then yeah, and then I got my other jobs as a finance manager in the corporate world. I was working for Microsoft and Baxter Healthcare Corporation, and I was like in a very successful career as a finance manager. And then I decided to leave corporate because it wasn't my path. And then that's where I started like to shifting and to going into another direction that will ultimately lead me to where I am today. And then, you know, I went into all that, and 2 years ago, I had 2.5 years ago, actually now, I had the accident that totally changed my life and that put me in a whole different direction.
Okay, so before we go into the accident, which is, it's like an explosion, an atomic bomb going off in your life. I really have to point out the fact that even though you know, one of the things that I'm noticing about you is that you were very clear on what you wanted and what you didn't want. And there was no fuzzy, hazy, kind of, sort of gray area in between. You knew pain is not acceptable. Bad treatment, abuse, no. It may be part of my history, but it's over. I am surgically cutting myself out of this home, this family system. I'm out of here. You got yourself out, and even when your family tried to sue and tried to get you back, and even the government, the powers that be, tried to contain you, you're like, I don't care what the government, the authority, this is a hell no, and this is a hell yeah. And
Yeah,
so
I have
you
my
took
own
action.
inner authority.
Yeah, you followed your inspiration, you followed your intuition, you were very sensitive to listening to that voice, and you just kind of like when you have a very hungry dog that gets a piece of steak with bone in it, and let you know, pit bulls will lock jaw on it and they don't let go. There isn't anything that's going to make a pit bull unlock their jaw. Once they put their jaws locked onto it, it's over. Until the bone is gone, it's never going to be released. And that's how you were. That's what I'm getting from you, where you had dogged determination and you just kept on focusing. Okay, step one, get out of this abuse, pain, and this horrible circumstance. I'm not going to continue to be victimized. I'm out of here. I don't know how. I don't know all the nitty gritty details, but I'll figure out a way. And then people, once you decided that, people started to show up, because that's how the universe works. It starts to, once you decide, there's an incredible amount of energy that's now released to help you go in that direction. So then the professor showed up. Now you have a place 2 hours and a half away from where you live, pretty safe, because they can't just show up at any time, anywhere. And now you're starting to move forward. Then you focused on, okay, now that you have a safe environment and you have shelter, you have food, you focused on educating yourself. You're like, you wanted to go to school. Now you could actually pay attention at school because your life is not in threat. And then you weren't just satisfied with any old school. You set your sights higher on a private school, the one where all the wealthy, the most brilliant kids of the most brilliant people of society send their kids there. And you're like, that's what I want to go. And when you're facing the fact that you don't have any go, and you're lamenting the fact that you can't go, sure enough, right on time, you have another angel that shows up and makes that possible. Then you go to college, you keep on moving forward. So there is a price to be paid. You paid the price of identifying what it was that you want, which is the first price I think that most people are unaware of. You've got to focus on what it is that you want. You have to decide, focus on what you want. And then two, you took not just any old haphazard action, you took inspired action based on the signs and the intuition that kept on leading you day by day. You kept on taking those inspired actions. That's another price to pay. I think a lot of people literally stumble on that, and they don't take action. They're like, they make a decision what they want, and they don't take the inspired action. They miss the intuitive hits. They miss the dreams.
And I think that's something that also is very important right there, that you're listing like those steps and those things. I think that is very important to have what you want so clear that you shut down to all the noise from outside. Because when I went to that high school with all the rich kids, I had no one to talk to. Like the parents have already put warnings for the kids to not talk to me because I was like a rotten apple. Because if I have left my house, who knows what kind of woman I was, what kind of lost child I was, like who knows what I was. So I do remember that every time they rang the bell and I had to go into my recess break, I will go to the bathroom and cry because I had no friends. I had no one to talk to, because none of the kids will talk to me because they were like, you know, we're forbidden to talk to you and everything. But like I had such a clear intention of what I wanted, and you know, everybody received different gifts. I received a mind that really didn't need to study much, and I was like the first, you know, first grades, the one with the best grades. I received a medal by the president of Costa Rica for having the highest grades of the whole country and everything. So you know, when all of this happened, then the parents actually started to send the kids to me. So it was like, oh, if Yerlin goes to this party, then you can go. If she teaches you this, then you can go to this thing. Then the parents started to invite me to their house, and they started to buy things for me. They started to support me. They would have me 1 month in this house, another month in another house, and they were all like, you know, supporting me and helping me and paying for me. But I had to go through that space where I don't have anyone. I have to be alone in the class. I had to do everything until I was there, not to be in depression about myself, not to be sorry for myself, not to be crying, oh, no one talks to me, oh, I don't have any friends, oh, I should kill myself. But just like Yerlin, you are here to study. You're here to just move forward. Ignore the noise. These kids, they have no idea of what's going on with you. Their parents have no idea who you are, and they will know eventually who you are. And I just kept going into that path until the parents actually were begging me to go and talk to their kids at nighttime when their kids were throwing a tantrum, and they were saying like, oh, I'm gonna leave my house, I'm gonna do this. And they will call me to go and talk to their teenagers that were, you know, that were just being like spoiled brats because they did have a very amazing life. So I think that a very important thing, or, you know, or like people saying, oh, that this girl probably left the house because she wanted to go and be with all the guys, or she wanted to go and do drugs, or she wanted to go, you know, it's like you have to ignore the noise. Like even today in my life, there is so many people that, like, you know, that make noises about me. And they said, oh, Yearning, who knows how she healed so fast. Oh, I have even heard people say, oh, she probably made a deal with the devil because no one has that amazing story. Who knows? Like, you know, people will always talk and say. And one thing that is important is you do you and focus on what is it that you want, not comparing, not crying, just focusing on what you want. And then the right people will start coming, because your light is so focused and so amazing that it's shining so bright that everybody then wants to come and be around you. Does that make sense?
So I love what you're saying. What you're saying is also that, you know, you make you decide what you want, then you take inspired action, and then you have laser focus. You don't care what anyone anywhere is thinking, because really anyone anywhere, they don't really know what it is that you're focusing, what your goal is, what the place that you want to go to. So who cares what they're all thinking? You're just focused, staying in your own lane. You don't have time to be entertaining all the gossip, all the rumors. That's just wasting your energy, and it's not going to help you get a step further. If anything, it's going to demoralize, depress you, make you worry, anxious, nervous, concerned about a bunch of BS that doesn't edify you. It's not the most, Dr. Joe would say, that's not the most loving thoughts to think about yourself, and to have others think unloving thoughts, to embrace something that is not anything other than love. And of course, at that time, you didn't know Dr. Joe, but again, you were following, you have such an incredibly strong resilience upon listening to God's voice, listening to intuition. It's all the same thing. Some people get caught up with, oh, God, or intuition. You know what? It's all the same thing. We have there's no way of describing the feeling and the sensation and the interpretation of the frequency, whether it's a vision or how that knowingness comes to you. So we have to use words. So you listen to God's voice. He showed you that he was cradling you. He was cradling you like a baby in the palm of his hand, because you are his baby. You will always be his baby. Mm-hmm. And you kept know and not doubt that, and you believed it, and then so you just had laser like focus. And that's such a powerful thing, especially right now in the middle of this global pandemic, this global world, this cosmic crisis that we find that we have. Not just the whole issue with the virus, the whole issue with there's so many things that are going on right now. It kind of feels like somebody dropped us into an episode of the Twilight Zone, where you have all these bizarre things that are happening that don't make sense. And we can pay a lot of attention to all that craziness, or ignore it all, keep laser like focus, keeping all the noise, like you said, and the distractions and the hearsay and the rumors and the authorities that want to control us to, you fill in the blank. No, you're going to focus on taking care of your business, doing what it is. You know, you're still alive. You still have to make a living. It's not like these things happen and your purpose just all of a sudden, for some people, their purpose, I think they've lost their purpose. And for those who haven't lost their purpose, like yourself, you keep on focusing like a laser beam with your purpose. Especially when people find out what you went through, they're going to go, and it's so funny because, you know, you were beautiful before, you're still beautiful. So it's incredible. It's so out of this world to think that everything you went through, and you look as good as you do, you're as intelligent as you are, you're as charming, you still have that resiliency, you have that drive, that gusto. Exaggerated, it's not as bad, but we're here to say no. This, you know, bad stuff happens to people, but it's no experience is wasted. It's not like these things are happening in vain. So I love the fact that those people who were saying, oh, keeping their kids from you, were the same people who are now wanting their spoiled kids to pay attention to you, because you proved yourself. You paid the price by ignoring their pleas, and you became the #1 student, not just in the school, but in the country. So now they're like, oh, wait a minute, she's a good influence. It's like, wow, you know, how is she doing this? So they were inspired to want to help you, to feed you, to house you, to clothe you, to give you money, to be basically with they wanted your characteristics to rub off on their kids, so that their kids would go, oh.
Yeah, it's breaking up. I can't hear you. Hello? Lillian, are you there? Hello?
Wait a minute. No, why? Oh, it froze up.
Yeah, it froze up.
Yeah,
the internet the internet is not being so good to us right now.
Yeah, it's being a little unstable. But it looks like we're back now. So you graduated from this high school, you ended up getting a degree. It sounds like you got more than one degree, by what you kind of glossed that over, but it sounds like you got a few degrees before you went to work for Mike.
Yeah, I did. You know, I have done a lot. Like, I went through 7 careers and 4 master's degrees. I have a degree in business administration and finances and sustainable development and environmental management. Then I did brain plasticity and neuroscience. And then I did holistic nutrition and Ayurveda in India. I bring pretty much of a nerd.
So
from just obsessed with.
I'm going to say from this point forward, I think with 4 master's degree, and your fifth master's at a very high level where you were able to overcome everything that you're about to disclose to us. You are Master YERLIN without a shadow of a doubt. You're the 5M girl, 5 masters, 4 that you went to school that they gave you the paper, that says, yeah, she's got these master degrees. And the 5th one, which there's no way they could even put it on a piece of paper because that master's degree was really a PhD piled
Yeah.
higher and way deeper, which made the 4 master's degree look puny. So tell us, after your divorce, you've got these 2 little girls. All of a sudden, where were you? What were you in the United States, or were you back in Costa Rica when this? What happened that brought you to this place leading up to the accident?
Oh yeah, like I got divorced, which was actually a very also bold thing that I did, because like I was here in United States. I was married to a guy that I was like a multimillionaire. I lived in an $8 million house with a right in front of the ocean, with a huge yacht in front of my house and golf course all around, uh, and just like a whole different life. My neighbor right next to me on the New England Patriots and the Boston Celtics and the Gillette Stadium, and a whole different life. And I just took my kids and left everything. I signed papers to quit all my rights, not receive any money, but I just wanted my freedom back. So I took my kids, like, with empty hands after that. And I went back to Costa Rica and I started studying. And then that's when I kept going into my professional career, into the corporate world. And then after that, I have another relationship and things like that. And then I started doing a lot of mind training and neurosemantics and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I went to Richard Bandler, the creator. I went all over the world with Dr. Holtz for neurosemantics. Like, I did a lot of things into really deeply understanding the mind. And, I continued to study bioenergetics and Germanic medicine and a bunch of different things. And then I met this guy from South Africa, and we were in love, and I was moving to South Africa. I was 3 months pregnant, and yeah, I had everything ready. I was 10 days away to move to South Africa to marry this guy and to be with this guy. And then I had an accident, and I had this accident where I fell from the height of, 4 floors, which no one really survives that.
No.
And when I fell, I hit an empty cement pool. And when I hit this empty cement pool, I broke my whole spine and my leg shattered into 1,000 pieces. So I woke up in the hospital the next day with the news that they needed to cut my leg and that I will never walk again. And that was really challenging for me, because I was just 10 days away from moving to South Africa, marrying the guy, and I just building a whole life. Actually, I had a bunch of suitcases that he had just taken back to South Africa. That day in the afternoon, he had sent me a picture of the car that he had bought for me. And it was like everything was ready. And so it was
Everything fell
very.
into place. And so everything had fallen into place. Now you're thinking, it's again, you're no stranger to change, to an adventure, to the new places, new faces, new things. So you're set to go to South Africa, and next thing you know, you wake up in a hospital bed after falling. Did you know that you fell 4 floors when you woke up?
No.
Wow. So I can't even begin to imagine. I don't even want to imagine the pain and the everything you were going through. But I'm sure, to say that it was traumatic, I'm sure it must have been very daunting, especially when you woke up. You must have immediately thought about your pregnancy and the concern about the well-being of that child, and then learning that that baby was gone. So They're
Yeah,
telling
no,
you,
like the baby, because this is like sometimes it's like so hard to chew all of this. I lost the baby, it was like 6 days before the accident. So I had just gotten, I lost the baby 6 days before the accident. I had just gotten out of the hospital. I had just gotten through surgery and anesthesia, complete anesthesia and everything to get the baby out because I had had the miscarriage. And so I was still like really going into the pain of that I had just lost my unborn child when I had the accident. So I was still like just processing the pain that I have just lost my baby when I had the accident. So everything came together because I woke up in this hospital all tied up because they had me tied up with these things in my body. And I didn't know what was going on. Like I was like, what's going on? And then it's like, well, you can't move because you won't probably you will never walk again, and we need to cut your leg because your leg is in such a bad shape that we cannot even save it. And like I'm like, what? Like what's going on? It's like I just lost my baby. I'm going through this pain. What is going on with me? And then they had me 5 days, not even in a hospital room, but in the hall of the emergency room, in the ER emergency room right there in Costa Rica, in the middle of the hallway, because they didn't know what to do with me. So for 5 days, I couldn't have any food and any painkillers. They didn't give me food because they didn't know if I was going in surgery or not. They could not give me painkillers because they didn't know if I was going in surgery. And if I was going in surgery, I could not have painkillers with the anesthesia. So I had to stay with a broken spine and a broken leg, paralyzed on my back with just this bright light, white light on the top of my eyes, in the hall where everything was happening 24 hours a day, emergencies coming in and out, me, no food, no painkillers, no nothing. That was a Monday, and I had the first surgery on a Friday. So that was 5 days of really, really tough pain of me.
brutal. So, okay, for starters, obviously, when this first happens, you don't know that you're going to be in the hallway of a hospital for 5 days. You just know that you're in horrible pain. So what was going through your head, you know, because I'm sure your notion of day and night was probably completely out of whack because you must have suffered a traumatic brain injury at the same time. You basically had a broken body, broken spine. You have a shattered leg that now is under threat of being amputated. You were obviously in shock. And I would imagine that you must have come in and out of consciousness those 5 days because of the pain level must have been. So how did you mentally and emotionally handle all of this? And what were the thoughts and what were the feelings that went? Do you remember the thoughts and the feelings that you endured during that period of time?
Yeah, I felt desperate. Uh, I felt desperate. I felt angry, especially, I don't know if you know the way that I had that fall, but the way that I had that fall is I had this client, a very rich woman from Costa Rica, that it wasn't my friend, but someone referred her to me. I have just seen her like 2 times in my life. And she called me, it was like 8 o'clock at nighttime when I was with my kids going to the grocery store, and she called me if I could go and have a session with her, and that meant like big money for me. Like at that time, still I was charging like $1,000 an hour or something like that. So like if I go a couple hours, that's $2,000. They will help my kids. So I told my kids, okay, kids, I went to the house and said, Mommy's gonna come back soon. And I went to this place, and this woman, I had this session with her, and she said, will you stay and have some sushi with me? And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then she gave me some wine. I ate the sushi, and then she told me that her friend was coming. And then it was 10 o'clock in Costa Rica, which meant that it was 6 o'clock in South Africa. Then my fiance was calling me. I take the phone call. I start talking to my fiance, and then her friend comes, and they open a little package and give me like like a piece of gum, but it wasn't a gum. It was like a gummy bear. And I eat this gummy bear, which I just ate gummy bear, and the gummy bear wasn't a gummy bear. The gummy bear had a drug inside. And I have never, ever had any kind of drugs, not even weed, not even anything. Like I have never smoked, I have never had weed, I have never tried anything in my life. And these people like give me this gummy bear and I eat it without knowing what's in there. And because my body was completely virgin to any of that, my body goes crazy, and it was just like it just wants to run, and it started running, and that's how I fell into the cliff. So I was my main because when I got to the hospital, I didn't know what was going on. Actually, the doctors at one moment asked me like, are you on drugs? Have you taken any drugs? And I was like, no, like I have never done drugs in my life.
So
And then
how did you find out that the gummy had a drug in it?
well, the girl sent me a message, and she told me later, and then the doctors at the hospital told me that I had a drug in my body. And yeah, and my brothers went crazy. They wanted to go and find the girl and like kill her or something, and so I think that
What a betrayal.
the main feeling that I had was a lot of anger, because I felt very angry with God at that moment, because I felt like, God, I don't think that anyone going party should ever had anything bad happen to them. But like I wasn't in a party. I was serving a woman, going to her house, helping her. I was serving, I was helping. I wasn't party. I wasn't in some disco getting trash or getting drunk or getting anything. I was going to work to a decent house. It's not that I went into a shitty hole and thing. I went into a beautiful mansion, into a beautiful place to do work, to serve there. And little did I know that these people in here were going to do this to me. So I think that the feeling that I had is I was very angry, because I said like, what the heck? Like, I know so many people that go party, that do drugs, that sleep all over with guys, that do terrible things, and nothing happened to them. And I go to this place to serve and work, and here I am, paralyzed in a bed, all broken bones, all broken everything from me, like not doing anything wrong. So if you ask me about the feelings, my main feeling at that moment was like desperation and angry. I was very angry.
Rightfully so. And I can't imagine, but I would have been really angry with God too, because I would have been angry with God. I would have been angry once I found out that, you've got somebody who gave you a drug. It's like they didn't say offer you a drug, they offered you a gummy bear. Why would you question a gummy bear? I wouldn't have questioned a gummy bear either. Just like I wouldn't have questioned a glass of wine or a coffee or a tea or any food. There's no reason for you to question that they're going to put something, to put something.
Especially in the environment where I was.
Yeah, and you were there to work. You weren't there to party or socialize. You were there because she was a client. You were, being paid as a consultant, and you took care of that. And next thing you know, now this happens. So then after the 5 days, so what happened after you had the leg surgery? And what
The
did you,
leg surgery first, they found a surgeon, which he's amazing. And I always say that he's so arrogant, that he's so good, because even if you look at his WhatsApp and his WhatsApp phone, he always says, rule number one, never be number two. And I love
I love that rule number one, never be. I love that rule number one, never be number two. You know, as much as you've got a master's in neurosciences, I believe, one of your
yeah.
so, and I do a lot of neurosomatic work myself, but it's amazing. The brain and the mind, as you know, it's a very powerful instrument that we're supposed to be the master of it. And whatever you tell the mind to do, it does. And if
Mhm.
you tell the mind, well, it would be nice to be number one, but if I get the silver or if I get second or third place, that's still pretty good and better, better than most. Then the brain is going to follow the instruction that the mind says. It's like, well, we don't have to go for it. We can just, she's willing to settle for second or third or for silver or bronze. So let's just take her to that level because she's willing to settle for that. And
Yeah.
her wish is my command. And so I love that he
Yeah,
said,
so when I discovered later on that he had that, I said like, oh, I'm in good hands because this guy, he did his work so good because he never wants to be number two. So he's really good at what he does.
I
So
love
he put my leg together and he rebuilt my whole leg in titanium because they have to vacuum out my bone, like all my whole bone. I had no bone structure past my knee. I had no bone. It was all like it wasn't even broken. It just shattered into pieces, like in little pieces. So they had to vacuum it out. So he had to rebuild my whole thing in titanium and put in that. So I went into that surgery that day, and then the next day I had to go into the spine surgery, which was very stressful because I had, to sign this paper saying that I had like 80% of chances of dying. They didn't know if I will make it because I had just had the last week I have had total anesthesia for getting my baby out. Then the day before I had anesthesia for my leg. And then, it was going to be the third round of anesthesia, of total anesthesia in less than a week. And they said you should have anesthesia at least like once the most like once a year and things,
your
So
autonomic nervous system was probably going, whoa. Oh my
yeah, so yeah, I said, well, I'll take the chance. And then I went into the operation room and I went there, I had the surgery. And when I woke up from the surgery, the only thing that I wanted to do was to call my fiance and tell him like, hey, I made it, I'm alive, like I'm ready, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna make it. And then he replies to me and he said, I think we need to break up, this relationship is not good to me any longer. And he breaks out with me right there when I'm broken in pieces, waking up from the anesthesia of my spine surgery, a week after I have lost our unborn baby, and on the day after my surgery. So this was to me like I just gotta be, I just gotta be in a nightmare right now. This cannot be true. I was so heartbroken. I felt I felt like I wasn't worth it anything. I felt like if I was this tiny little bug that someone came and
And you're
like
so alone. Okay, so I got to hit the pause button here. Huge pause button. Because so many women, and I'm going to address women because you and I are both women. So many women are so devastated when a man breaks up with them. Sometimes sometimes we're the ones that break up with men, and other times women have the men that break up with them or leave them. And in your, there's never a good time to break up with anybody. Let's face it. You've been divorced, I've been divorced. When I divorced my husband, he wasn't a horrible man. It just was not, it was something that wasn't working for me anymore. And I needed, like you, I needed to be free. And so it's not the best feeling thing to be on the receiving end of a breakup. However, knowing what we know now, it's like you dodged a huge bullet, because any man that would leave you right after you lost your unborn child that both of you, had together, you lost your unborn child, you had this horrific accident. This is the time where you needed him the most.
and I
And
was
now
just 10 days away to go to South Africa and marry him. He already has taken all my suitcases and the
everything,
apartment. I put a lot of money into that too.
yeah, but he showed you his true colors at the worst possible time. But he showed you his true colors. He really could not be there for you. And sooner or it's, you were going to go to South Africa, move to a different country. You would have found out, had you not had this accident, maybe 3 months later, maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later, you would have realized this man is all for himself. He's not really for me. He really doesn't love me. He doesn't really want to take care of me and my kids. Mind you, you're not like a parasite that's just leeching off of him. You are a very productive, brilliant woman, well educated. You're making $1,000 plus an hour. So you really are the crown. You're not just the crown jewel. You are the crown for him to have you. You are the prize. And still now on the at the worst possible moment, you've defied death, not only surviving the fall but surviving that second surgery with your leg being completely reconstructed, and then a few days later having your spine having surgery.
The next day, I had the spine surgery.
That's insane for you to have another surgery like literally 24 hours later, and for him to break up with you right when you come out of anesthesia, and to do it over. Obviously, he's a coward, but you know what? I hate to say this, but it's the truth. The divine, God was protecting you from someone who was not suited for you. And
Yeah.
as I'm sure it couldn't have been anything more devastating, because now you're like, when you really need someone to care for you, to be with you, to encourage you, the one person you expected was for him to be there for you. And he's like, I'm out. Just,
Yeah. He said,
I'm
like,
out.
peace out.
Yeah. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm like, this is not working for me. I'm done. It's like, and I'm sure, but your heart wasn't done. So now the final blow is like, okay, let's shred her heart, not just break it. So it's a clean cut. No, let's just like shred her heart apart. So now you're having to endure that on top of, as if you didn't have enough on your plate. So where did you go from
Yeah,
there?
and it was it was even worse than that because no, not just did I have my heart broken, but like I was 10 days away to move to South Africa. I have canceled all my insurance, so the government, thanks God, paid for some of my surgery, but everything besides that I had to pay. I was $200,000 in debt, and I'm the provider for my kids, my house. I had to pay a mortgage on my house. I had no money, no way to make money. Like I was absolutely devastated. So something that I said is that I was broken in every single way a person can be broken. I was spiritually broken, emotionally broken, heartbroken, physically broken, and financially broken. It's like if you were a rock bottom and then suddenly you discover that rock bottom actually has a basement.
Yeah, a very deep basement, I might add.
Yeah. So so yeah, it was like a really challenging time in my life where I had to, I had to go and find parts of myself that I didn't even know I had. And I think that's something that really worked for me in order to keep my mind in sanity and not go insane, was to take every pain and put it in a different basket. So I didn't put everything at once, like in my body, but I separated the things in different containers. Like I put the pain of losing my baby, the pain of being left by my future husband, the pain of being financially broken, the pain of having my body destroyed, the pain of feeling like not connecting to anything. And then I would go and work on one pain at the time, like one thing at the time. And as I was doing one thing at the time, then I was being better. And something that is so amazing that I want to share, because this was wisdom that came right from my daughter. One day I was crying in bed, like really, really bad. My daughter comes to me, and she's at that time, she's like, I think she's like 13 at that time, something like that. And she comes to me and she tells me, "Mommy, are you in pain?" And I'm like, "No, I can't see a path." And I don't see a path. There's no path, because I have lost everything. I have lost my money, my body, my baby, my fiance, my things. Even the father of the kids had just told me that he's gonna take the kids to Boston because I cannot handle the kids. So I'm like, I'm even taking my kids. I've been taking away from my kids. So it's like a lot. And then my daughter tells me this story, and she tells me, "Mommy, the forest, when you have taken us to the forest." I'm like, "Yeah." And then she tells me, there's ants in there. And I'm like, "Yes." And she said, "Well, ants communicate to each other through a hormone. So they leave a hormone to communicate to each other. But sometimes, because they're in the forest, the leaves fall and they cover the path. And at that moment, the ant needs to ask herself, do I go back like I failed, like I couldn't find the path? Or do I start taking one leaf at the time, one leaf at the time? Because mommy, the path hasn't gone anywhere. The path is just covered by the leaf. So mom, what kind of ant are you?" And that was like, it blows my mind until this day.
Okay, so the divine God used your daughter. That was the mouthpiece. she paid attention to that message and was willing to be that cleansed vessel that could communicate to you, and God knew that you would receive that in the spirit that it was intended. That is absolutely remarkable. And I want to tell you, it's interesting because you had those 4 degrees that you had before you had your accident. And so this accident was your fifth, your PhD basically. I find it fascinating because you had neuroscience already in your background. So I believe that in a state like that, you don't think, you're not doing critical thinking, but you instinctively pulled into your subconscious mind and you use the neurosomatic processes, and you knew instinctively that you needed to categorize the different pains and deal with them in a box one at a time. And I know a lot of people don't understand about how neurosomatic systems of the body actually work. But one of the ways that we relieve pain is by isolating a pain, pointing to it so that then you can deal with an individual pain wherever it might be in the body, and then you can dissolve it and resolve it. So that is brilliant that as you were lying there, recovering, trying to get yourself into a better feeling state, you realize I need to, one pain at a time. Like this is one box, this is another box. I'm just going to deal with one at a time, because otherwise it's overwhelming. It's like eating an elephant. No one can eat an elephant all in one bite. You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I think for people right now who are on overwhelm, because there's a lot of people running around, in a heightened state of alert, and with the worst virus that we've known to mankind, which is the fear virus, and they're freaked out and they're overwhelmed with job, family, illness. It's like too many pain bodies that are going rattling inside them. What you're giving them here is a great gift. Let's just list them all, and then
Yeah.
you can deal with them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And if they
Mm-hmm.
can't do it themselves, then they can reach out to somebody like you or me, where we know how to guide people through the process so that you can knock them. It doesn't even take that long. It's not like a 3 to 6 or year process. You can knock those out pretty quickly and start to
Very,
realize better.
that's the magic and that's the work. When I work with my clients, it's like it can be like 10, 20 minutes and you have a whole different things that have been recoded in your mind, and your whole neural connection system in your brain is functioning at a whole different level. So that allows the people to release and free up like free flowing energy units that
Yes.
now you get to use and invest in other things that are more important, that are giving you more production and more return, that to invest that energy having it like stuck in there in something that is not giving you any return for you
Yeah,
and
it's
for
being
you.
spawned. It's awareness and consciousness energy it's wasted. It's like your being is like how you have a colander when you boil pasta and you put it into a colander so that the water comes out and it just retains the pasta. But when you are in that state where you haven't pulled all your energy in, you've got all that energy that's being spilling everywhere. You could gather it all up and now focus it like a laser, and you could do incredible things. So tell us what happened after you heard your daughter tell you about going through the leaves and continue on the path, knowing that the path, even though you can't see it because a leaf is covering it. What did you do next?
Well, I did just that. I started focusing on one thing at a time. So I remember that the one thing that I really was miserable about was having people wiping my butt. I told people, and I tell people every day, if you woke up today and you can wipe your own butt, you're having an amazing day. Because trust me, like at this time, it's just so, it's so uncomfortable and not nice to have someone like wiping your butt and changing your diapers and like feeding you in your mouth and everything spilling all over and giving you like sponge baths
And
because you
being
can't.
able to take your own. Yeah, we have some things. I mean, I'm not going to compare myself to you. I've had certain things, but I've the whole crying in the bathroom at school. I share that experience with you. I had 4 pregnancies, lost the first child, had that procedure that you have to go under anesthetics and so forth. So I know what that's like. It's very traumatic. And then the other three children that I had, I ended up with high risk pregnancies where I was on bed rest for a year at a time, and they were still born 2 months early. And then they were in PICU after they were born, and a whole set of stuff there. So I know what it's like when you're on a hospital bed 24/7, you know, the lights are always on, for months at a time, and you can't do anything. You can't bathe yourself. Your whole body is, you're basically paralyzed from the head down to your toes. You're at the mercy of whatever the nurses, you know,
Mm-hmm.
can and will do for you. And it's a very
Yeah, like a
complex,
grown up.
yeah, it's, and then when you get out, it's not like your muscles are all of a sudden, you know, my skin was like kind of, I thought, how is it that I thought only old people would have that, that your skin kind of gets translucent from not using
Yeah.
your, because your muscles atrophy. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, just to sit up is exhausting. So you with your back surgery and your leg surgery, I'm sure the first time that you were able to sit up on your own, you know, I don't know if you were able to sit up for more than 10 or 15 minutes at a time because it's exhausting. And your brain's going, how can it be exhausting? I'm not doing any, I'm just sitting, because you don't realize how many muscles
my,
you use.
my back and my bones like were not working. I didn't have any strength on my legs or something. So I had this bed frame and I will hold myself from the bed frame and I will force myself to sit. So I could like at least, and it was such a terrible pain because, you know, everything, all the screws in my body was then pulling, and that was really, really extremely painful. But I knew I needed to do that. So they were like getting ready to move, because if they were not ready, getting ready to move, then I will never make it. So I started to do that, and I just started to meditate a lot. I started to really focusing on my body. I started to drink just like structured water, which I think that really is something that is amazing, and that helped me a lot, because the water, you know, hold memory, and you can talk to the water and transmit
Program.
codes and healing. So
Yeah.
I did a lot with the water. I started drinking and taking just the best medicines and foods and things. And then I just started channeling energy. I will receive all these messages and all these like downloads about to move the energy in my body and how to move the energy. And I will see like this, like a golden spider web building up my bones, and like a needle, like going
Like weaving.
building up my bones.
Wow. So
Mhm.
how long did it take, did it take you to go through that process? And at what point, at some point you probably came into contact then with Dr. Joe's work, because that's how I met you, was through, I
Yeah,
believe.
well, I have attended Dr. Joe's work before the accident. That's why I always said that I received the theory first and then I had the test about it. Because I have been in his workshops. I have been in advanced workshops before. I have been in 3 advanced workshops before this happened. And so like I already was familiar with the work. So I started like doing that. I started doing the meditations. I started doing like, you know, imagining and visualizing and seeing myself. And I had a lot of support of this community of Dr. Joe Dispenza community, which is so dear to me because it helped me so much in that time. And I just started receiving all these, and you know, the doctor has said after the surgeries that it was going to take me at least 2 years in order to be walking again if I had constant therapy and things. And it was amazing because at 3 weeks I was for a checking appointment, and my bones were supposed to grow 3 centimeters and mine have grown 15 centimeters. So the doctors were like, what's going on? This is impossible. This is not scientifically possible that your bones are, you know, growing like this. You are basically regrowing the bones on your legs, and like, how is this possible? And you know, all of that was just energy work and energy work. And by doing that, at just 8 weeks, I was walking again. So I went from 2 years that the doctor told me that it was going to take me to just 8 weeks. So just like, just like 8 weeks later, I was walking again. I was walking again at week 8, and at week 9, I was in Bali and Singapore and Indonesia teaching people, because people started to call me and to tell me, hey, can you teach us? Like, can we learn from you? Can you do that? And then, I was then, that's how I started like traveling all over the planet to teach and to, help people and support them and coach them. And yeah, so at week 8, I was walking, and week 9, I was in Bali teaching, traveling with my back, just recovering, and going in an 18-hour airplane flight. So that was
That's
pretty great.
incredible. So from 3 centimeters, you were actually growing 5 times more, 15 centimeters as opposed to 3 centimeters. What the doctors thought could potentially take you either 2 years or never, you did in less than 10 weeks. This is absolutely mind boggling. But what we thought was impossible, you're living proof that it's without a shadow of a doubt, it is possible. And you're
Yeah,
living.
because science just goes so far, and people, I think that mistake that people make is to need permission from science of what is possible. Science which not tells us what is possible. We should tell science what is possible. It should be us telling science what is possible, not science telling us what is possible. We are the ones in charge. We are the ones running the show, and we always have to find a way to be on top and not having science be on top. Science is amazing for many things, but it just goes so far. And there is so much more that no one has figured out yet. And there is so much more that science is just starting. Science is kind of behind like 2,500 years, because science is just like catching up now with things that people have known in Asia and in the East for so many years. And science is just saying like, yeah, that's true. Now we discovered that this exists. Now we discovered that the natties exist and that you have energy venues in your body. And now we discover, and like, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like we froze here. We're going to give you a second here to get the feedback on. There we go. Yeah, so we just lost you for a second, but you know what? You are absolutely right. And I'm wholeheartedly 100% on the same page of music with you there. People don't recognize how science, we've come a long way in science, but, science is only about 300 years old, and it is by definition very limited. There's more of what they don't know in science than what they do. And they're still trying to figure out a lot of the things that the mystics and the ancients and the shamans and uh, Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine. It goes back to the Ming Dynasty, where it's thousands of years old, and so there are limitations that are placed in science that really in the cosmos, in the universe, which is not even confined to this planet. Energy is all there is. There is no limitation to energy. And as one of the things that I like to especially coach mothers with, because separate from those incidents that I mentioned before about my high risk pregnancies, I also had a son who was in the hospital for 11 and a half weeks, where he went from skiing on black diamond runs up in Northern California in Mammoth. He went from doing advanced skiing to being paralyzed from the neck down. And
Wow.
and he ended up coming down with, it took five and a half weeks to diagnose him. But when we walked into the emergency room, of course, they ordered CAT scan, brain scan. We're talking full neurological workup. When we brought him in, they thought he was a handicapped kid. I said, no, on Friday, he was at Mammoth. He was doing the black diamond runs, skiing for 6 to 8 hours a day. He's been there for over a week. So, long story short, one of the things that I love to coach moms who have children who are battling any kind of illness, children who've either suffered an injury or have a syndrome, a disease, or cancer, or any kind of a neurological disorder is, like you said it so eloquently, science will only take you so far. Those doctors, yes, they are experts in their fields, and they are limited by the education that they have and the experience of what they have seen. I'm not going to include what they haven't seen because that's impossible. So they're limited by their education and their experience. So based on their education, which is limited by definition, and their experience, which is also limited to the patients that he's treated or read about, that's that's going to be his worldview and their limitation. You, on
Yeah.
the other hand, as a mother, and you're a mother too, YERLIN, as I am, we
Mhm.
are experts on our kids. So I don't
Yeah,
care whether you have one doctor, or in my case, I had like 14, 15, 16 neurologists of all sorts of different specializations telling me that, so and so was going to do this, that, and whatnot. I followed my intuition, and I said, there were times where I knew that I was the expert on my son, and I
mm,
had an intuitive hit. It's like, I know you guys are saying that this doctor should be doing this procedure for whatever reason. And my intuition said, you know what? The only one who can it's even going to be done. The only person who can lay a finger on him and do that very delicate procedure is going to be, I'll never forget his name to this day, Dr. Goodman. I said,
mm.
Dr. Goodman is the good man who will do this procedure, or no one else will do it. End of story. I didn't need statistics. I didn't need, no, I knew that he was the only one. And I think the more mothers take back their power, because that's what you did. The key to your being able to survive, not just this life-changing accident, but everything you've been through from the time you were a child to getting out when you were 14 years old, to getting yourself to the place where you survived this accident, and to the point where we are here right now hearing your life story, is that you didn't give your power away. You decided what you wanted. You were very clear about it. You took inspired action, and you made sure that you didn't give your power away.
Yeah. And that's so important because so many people, I see them today giving their power away to everything, to the government, to the CDC, to a virus, to this, to whatever people say, what the fear, to anything. It's kind of, okay, like give me something to believe and I'll sign you my life over in a blank check, because it's like people is so scared. It's so scared because when you forget who you are, then you get scared. That's why something that I say, and because I gotta go today in a little bit. It's my sister-in-law's birthday today. But something that I would like to really tell people is that always remember three things: who you are, who you serve, and who you love. Because those three things, when you remember that, you are crystal clear and you have this grounded authority that comes from you, that is so strong that it start doing and it start bending all the energy around. And the art of energy bending, of bending the energy around, is something that can just be done, and it can just be performance if your own energy is totally in alignment. If it's totally in resonance and it's in total alignment, then you can bend the energy around you. And you just do that when you remember and you have very clear who you are, who is it that you're serving, and who is it that you love. And when you remember that, it's like everything light up. Everything is like this connected tube of light coming from the sun star, from the whole planet, from spirit, from God itself, and coming to your third eye, coming to your eyes and coming to your heart. And then it's just exploding and expanding all over. And to me, that is the magic. When we remember that, we really and absolutely can have that energy and that presence of authority that can energy and bend the energy around us. And that's the real change, and that's the real power, and the real medicine for this world, is that we all learn to just connect and have our authority coming from the light and connecting to that.
So there you have it. We learn to bend the energy, and we have that authority by learning to connect with that light and be in that brain and heart coherence where you're allowing that to come through. And I love the way that you're calling it bending the energy. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, and not just Dr. Joe Dispenza, but in physics in general at large, and in neuroscience, we know that, at the atomic level, when you're not looking, when you don't have anyone observing, when you don't have any consciousness focused on any particulate matter, it is an energy waveform. So it's waiting for somebody, something, it could be an animal, it could be a person, to focus on it so that then the potential waveforms turn into particles.
Yeah, and then it can be redirected, and then it can be bended, and then it can be applied, and it can be just commanded, redirected, and influenced.
So then you can, instead of having it grow at 3 centimeters in 8 or 10 weeks, you can have it grow 15 centimeters because you, on purpose, are in your mind's eye. You've got that heart and that brain coherence, and you're seeing it all the time. So 5 times faster, you're making that grow. In fact, it's even more than 5 times faster because 8 weeks, there's 52 weeks in a year. So they said it was going to take you 104 weeks or longer, and it took you not even 10. And and then on top of that, it grew 15 centimeters. So really, and the thing is, obviously, you didn't stop there. You healed not only your body, you healed your emotional state of being. You healed. People don't recognize energy is energy is energy. So the energy does not care the digits on your cell phone, looking at your bank account, or paper statements. Those are two-dimensional, 3-dimensional, if you want to consider that we're in the 3D world, but it's all energy. So for us, $1, $1,000, $1,000,000, $10,000,000, to us, a bill that's $1 versus 100, we value the $100 bill more than the $1 bill. But as far as energy is concerned, it's still a bill. It just happens to have ink on it that says one number versus the other. It doesn't really care. So that's how you were able to heal yourself financially, physically, emotionally, relationally, and so forth. So tell us a little bit about exactly what do you do and how do you do it with people who come to you seeking you for your services?
Well, I do several things. I do a lot of things actually. I have programs that I lead in groups. I have people that I work like one-on-one, that I do mentoring and coaching, and I do something that is called quantum integration. And the quantum integration method is is a method that has everything. It has the physical, it has the emotional, it has the spiritual part, it has the energetic part, and I work in all of that, just like balancing and realigning all the energy bodies of the person for really be able to do what they need to do. And I also work a lot with plant medicine, so I help people a lot with plant medicine, and we have learned a lot from the shamans in the Amazon and from different shamans that we have studied and done. And we have died different like plants and things that we have understand. So we also work a lot with plant medicine with people, and we serve the medicine in many places. So yeah, we do a lot of things. And what really is my passion is I just love to see people evolving and creating new realities. I love, like, my orgasmic moment is when I receive messages from the people of like aha moments of seeing things like evolving and transforming and becoming different in their lives. It just gets me so excited, and I just feel this deep like purpose and fulfillment inside every time that I'm working with people and they're moving to a whole different reality and they're just discovering their own power. So I say everybody's so powerful, and if there is anything that I do, I just hold the pen to help them write a different story for them. Like I'm like when you're like when there's a kid, and I remember with my own daughters, they didn't still know how to write and do everything, so I will hold the pen with them and take the little hands and help them make the letters and make the things. So I kind of do that with adults in many things. I say, well, tell me what your story is. What's your new reality that you want to create? What is it that you want to live? And I say that now it's funny because I did all these studies. I was such a nerd. I became so obsessed with the human mind and spirit and things. And today I said, I don't even talk about much my formal studies. I think I tell people, I help them to learn 5 things and to live by 5 things. And this is deep trust, to living magic, bliss, beauty, and play. And that's what it is. Like, it's like magic, bliss, beauty, and play through deeply trusting the divine and connecting to that divine, to that divinity, and to really connecting and feeling and doing it. But I just love to help people to connect with the magic and living magic and just have a blissful life, that you wake up every day like you're absolutely in love with your life. And that's my passion, that's my gift. And yeah, that's what I do today.
Love that. So connecting to those 5 points, connecting to the magic, you said deep trust, magic, bliss, beauty, and play. We all know that playing, fun, is one of the highest vibrational states that you can be in, because when you're playing and you're having fun, you're in that place of joy and you're at that vibrational frequency that just feels so good. And so when you're in that state of joy, you are in resonance with your heart coherence and brain coherence. And that's where you can then put your hands, as you focus on what it is that you want. You can start to mold that potential waveforms of energy, and then you can make the particles so that actually in a very quick time. I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have is they think that, oh, this is going to take months and months and months, maybe years. That's not true. I mean, you can have things all of a sudden pop into your existence literally in 15 minutes, sometimes
Yeah.
even less. It all depends on what it is. And as you and I both know, the key component is to not be attached to how or when, just be in excited anticipation, knowing that you uploaded the order, the divine got the order, you let go. And sometimes as soon as you open your eyes, boom, it's there. Other times
Yeah.
you have to wait an hour, a day, a week, a month. But make no mistakes, the order is in. And the more you just keep on molding
And it
it.
really is a choice. It is really when we are truly in alignment with that new opportunity, and we can surrender the control, and don't keep doing things in a manufactured way. So don't be in like manufactured manifestation where we are making everything happen, but actually being in surrender manifestation, which is I'm just creating the space for things to come to me. So I'm not manufacturing and hustling and doing so much, but I am just deeply relaxed and flowing and allowing the beauties of spirit to just come through me, and I just create the space and allow that to happen. So my only job is to allow to take the inspired aligned action and watch the show.
I love that, because that is in Asian medicine, Oriental medicine, they call that yin energy. It's that allowing energy. It's you are the container that allows the flow of the energy in the universe to bring things to you. And so you're not in the make it happen, toil, work hard. No, you trust, and you believe that once you do the work, you put the order in. Now all you have to do is allow it to come in, like you said. So is there something that you have that you want to give to any of the viewers, or any one specific viewer?
Yeah, well, there's like I recently recorded a really amazing, like a really amazing training that is about how to get rid of toxic beliefs and live a life of high vibration. And like people can just find me in Instagram and Yerin Ramirez T, or in Facebook. You can put the links or whatever it is to there, and people can just send a message, and I'll make sure that I can send them that. And it's really powerful. It's like a 1 hour training where we go really, really deep into what is it that you need and what's the process that you need to rewire and clean and get rid of anything that is not serving you to the highest, and just being in high vibrational state.
To be in a high vibrational state. So if you want to be in a high vibrational state, we'll make sure to put in your Lynn's contact information so that you can go ahead and get that free 1 hour training from her. YERLIN, this has been a fantastic hour. I have to make sure that we include, I'm going to move over here to one side. This show has been brought to you by NLPpower.com, Dr. David Snyder, and we want to thank you for tuning in, tapping, and turning on to today's show. One lucky viewer will win a t-shirt, and we will ship it directly to you. We will go ahead and put in the comments below who the lucky winner is. Thank you, YERLIN. You are amazing. And I got to tell you, there's of the thousands of testimonials that Dr. Joe has, and I've listened to probably thousands for the last several years. And I got to say, there are two that stood out in my mind. And one was you, because everything was broken. When I first heard your story, I thought, oh my gosh, this is absolutely wild. It's like everything was broken. And so you were one, and then there was another one which you probably heard and watched that testimonial, and perhaps even met the man who he had like over 50 or 60 tumors from his brain scattered throughout to his whole body. Then he went through a divorce, and he was a stage 4 cancer. And during that whole thing, you know, his wife asked him for a divorce, and the only thing that kept him going was the love that he had for his daughter, because he wanted, of course, he lost his job, he lost everything too, but he went from having 50, 60 brain tumors, liver, pretty much every organ in his body, every limb, everything. He was riddled with all those cancerous tumors and zero possibility of any kind of life expectancy to all of the tumors vanished. And so I thought, wow, those two testimonials are mind blowing. And most people.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me here. And thank you very much to everybody that is watching. I hope I can connect with all of you. And yeah, just send me a little message. I always love to connect with people and to know from all of you. It's such a pleasure to be able to serve and live the life that I live, and to be just like expressing and living my purpose and my life, serving as many people as I can, because I know how amazing it is when you wake up every day feeling absolutely in love with your life. So thank you. And thank you, Lillian, for allowing me to be here in this space.
Thank you, YERLIN. If you want to be in love with your life too, learn how to bend energy, how to fix anything that's broken or all that is broken, tune in, tap into YERLIN in the link in the description below. Thank you again, my friend, and I hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope I get to see you in person too and give you a big hug. And yeah, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All righty. Ciao for now.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.